Hello everybody, Jodie Thornton, Parent Coach here. Today I want to talk about the 3 areas of your parenting that other people might be very judgmental about that actually tell you that your parenting is way on track, that if your child is behaving this way, then we are along the journey. So we're not at the finish point yet, but you're doing great. And I want to break this down because, well, first of all, I'll tell you why I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it so that you have better arguments to have with people who are judging your parenting. And I've made a post about this on my Facebook page, and I'll link to it in the show notes. I don't recommend having better arguments to change somebody's view of your parenting, because usually we're arguing at the surface level and we're not getting into the depth of why they're actually judging you in the first place. So that's not what today is for. What it is for is that when someone judges you, I don't want you to take that to heart. I don't want you to allow it to rattle you. And if it does kind of stir something up in you, I want you to use that moment to celebrate how far you have come, celebrate the awesome things that you're already doing in your parenting. And then we're just going to talk about what will be the next steps if you're ready to take that. So the 3 behaviours we're going to be talking about today are physically lashing out, having big meltdowns over little things, and also those endless debating or endless negotiations where your kids just won't give in, or they just won't let up until you either acquiesce or explode. So the first one about physically lashing out. So this is one where when a kid is hitting, kicking, biting, spitting, any of those kinds of physical, I'm trying to get my point across with my body. One of the things that this tells us is that you have created a space in which your child understands that them getting hurt is important to you. They recognize that you think that their needs and them having their own opinions about what's going on for them is actually important, worthwhile, and needs to be heard. So when they're lashing out, yes, they're getting overwhelmed, and for some kids it's like a loss of control, so that it's kind of coming outwards. But what it means is that they've not spent a lot of their life basically disconnecting from those feelings, and they're not spending a lot of their life thinking about how they really should just not bother other people with what's important to them. So if your child is hitting, kicking, spitting, lashing out in any physical way, what we want to do is recognize that just because another child is not doing those behaviors doesn't mean that they're actually more emotionally resilient. It may, but it may also mean that those parents have given that child a message that their feelings and needs are not worthwhile to be heard. So for you can say that's fantastic that they know that they know it's okay for them to express themselves. So now the next step is really helping them to recognize what is it that they're upset about truly. Because it's not about the shape of the toast, and it's not about whose turn it is with the Lego. Like, there is something that is deeply important to them if they're lashing out. So what we can do when a child is in that physical lashing out space, one thing we can do is to help them notice when are their feelings escalating to the point at which they're going to lose control and start lashing out, and getting them to actually start to ask you for help. So to notice what happens for your child physically before they reach the point at which they're going to lash out. And so if you help your child build that awareness, then they can see, Mum, my shoulders are going up. That means I'm getting too stressed. I need you to help me. He's not giving me a turn, right? That then gets you the ability to intervene and to help before it ends in fisticuffs. Then the second thing we want to do is look at helping your child to truly express themselves. They're lashing out because they don't feel like they're being heard. So when we are really helping our child to express themselves, at first we're just helping them to guess. We're just giving them suggestions of, is it this, is it that? And so what I always say is that if you're trying to explain your child's perspective and you can't validate it, you need to go deeper. So the more practice you have at helping your child really get themselves heard, the more likely they will choose to use their words rather than use their body. to get their point across. The next thing I want to talk about is when our children are having big overreactions, so meltdowns or tantrums or just big feelings over what's, in the scheme of things, quite a small issue. Similarly to when a child is physically lashing out, if your child is in this space, they have received the message that them getting what they want is important to you. And that is so precious. Like, how many people do you meet who felt that their parents, they knew their parents loved them, but they never felt loved? Part of that is it's, I love who you are, but I don't want you to want what you want. I don't want you to need what you need. And if I can't deliver on what you need, then I want you to change what you need so as we can be connected. And so what we want to do is really recognise that you have done a brilliant job, especially if your child, well, not especially, either way, whether your child only tantrums or meltdowns for you, or whether your child tantrums or meltdowns regardless of circumstances, they have received the message from you that their feelings and needs are important. And that's awesome. Well done, you. So the next thing we want to do, if we want to take that next step with tantrums and meltdowns, is first we want to get in, the earlier we can get, we want to help them to actually express their feelings and needs. So you can do a few different things to raise their awareness. One is, in your end of day, when you are asking, either at the dinner table or at bedtime, if you're asking about their days, when they say, so-and-so said a mean thing to me at daycare today, rather than going into, oh, sweetie, it's okay, and soothing and trying to make it okay, we want to look at, what does that mean for you? So sort of, how did it feel when they said that to you? Where did you feel it in your body? You know, asking questions. So the more practice they have at noticing when something difficult happens, what's happening inside of my body, what does it bring up for me? What's important to me about this thing happening? The more likely they are to actually have the awareness and the skills to communicate differently, rather than needing to get to that overwhelmed point. So that brings us, so that's our first and second. Our third point is those endless negotiations and debates about, like, the everyday, do I have to wear shoes? Why do I have to do everything myself? You know, all of those things. Like, this one I really love, because what this says is that you haven't indoctrinated your child into the way our culture experiences life. So our culture experiences life is that when something just has to be done, do not worry about your feelings. Just get through it. So you might disconnect. You might tell yourself you should want to do it, like you should want to exercise, is what we might say as an adult. But for children, it's like, you know, I don't make the rules. And all that tells a child is that there are times in life where I'm allowed to do what I want and be happy, and there are times in my life where I just have to suck it up and do what someone else says. And that's the kind of attitude we want to change. So there's definitely times in our lives that we need to be creative about how we can get our needs met in the circumstances that we're in. But when we just can't, for whatever reason, then the alternative is not just get on with it and don't complain. The alternative is to hold space for our feelings. When we've really investigated all the options to make this better and to really be okay with it in ourselves, if we've exhausted all of those options, then the next step is to actually hold space for the fact that this sucks and it's not okay, right? And how we're going to get through this. Now, that kind of level of detail isn't necessary when we're talking about, can you just get your shoes on? But it's a sign, when they're debating about their shoes every single day, it's a sign that you haven't taught them that life is to be endured, that they are to only find pockets of happiness and pockets where they can make things that are important to them stand out for their own lives. So what we want to do, if we want to take the next step with those endless debates and negotiations, we want to do two things. The first thing we want to do is help your child get used to debating really effectively. So what I often hear from parents of strong-willed children is that their children will come up with 50,000 reasons for why they shouldn't have to be putting their shoes on, or why it's not their turn to pick up all the Lego. Whatever the issue is, what they're trying to do is say to you, this is not okay with me, I don't want to do it, here's a reason why you should change your mind. So what we want to do instead is get them clear on why is it that it's not okay for them. So get them clear, because once we get into granular detail about what the issue is, that gives us the option to find a solution that works for everybody. So it doesn't mean we don't get the outcome we need, if it's getting out the door on time, for example, but what it is it opens up more possibilities for solutions. The second thing we want to do in that next step stage, if you're stuck in that space where there's endless debates and negotiations, is for you to be able to confidently and skillfully hold boundaries. So what that might look like is saying, sweetie, I am exhausted and I do not have any more energy to talk about this. I really want to find a way for this to work, but I can't talk about it anymore right now. Right? That's one way it could look. Another way it could look is for you to say, the only way I can agree for us to go to the park is for you to be wearing shoes that have their toes covered. I don't have any preference about that, but it has to be shoes that are toes covered. And the reason for that is because I'm worried about your safety. I'm not really sure why I chose this example. I'm not sure if there are parks that need toes covered shoes, but anyway, let's go with it, right? So I'm very, very clear about how this is the reason I'm holding this boundary. This is why I'm holding it. Here's all the space for you to make decisions within that. And that then allows them to focus their energies on solving the problem rather than focusing their energies on trying to get you to move the boundary, like change the boundary from the type of shoe they need to wear or whether they have to wear shoes at all. I'm like, that I can't move on that. This is why, and I'm not moving on it. Then they're focusing their energies actually on the alternative options available to them. And you don't have to be the one who comes up with all the options. The clearer you make the boundaries, the easier it is for your particularly strong-willed children, because they're far more motivated to keep going, the easier it is for them to channel their energy into something that's really constructive. So I hope this has been really helpful, and I just want to give this one more cheeky warning to say this is not a good idea to use this as a better argument to change other people's judgment of you. What it is that when other people judge you, rather than start to question yourself and think, well, maybe I am doing the wrong thing because my kids are not seeming to be able to behave as well as others, take it for what it is. Celebrate the thing that you have done that has gotten you to this place, that it is fantastic that you've been able to do that. And then you just have a think, am I ready for the next step? Or is now the time for me to just be okay that that's where we're at now? That's as far as I'm ready to go right at this moment. If you are ready to take that next step, I'd really love for you to reach out and have a chat. We can talk about what might be the next steps to get you through these challenging behaviours in a way that really works. So often when we're dealing with these kinds of behaviours, what we first want to start with is your child's emotional awareness. We'll work on how you're going to handle the times when they're really overwhelmed and the behaviours are coming out. We can also have a look at what is coming up for you and deal with those triggers so that they don't actually get in the way of you being calm for your kids. And finally, we'll talk about what are the skills that your children need to be able to shift out of only looking at our emotions when there's a problem and shift into looking at how do our feelings help us to be more connected, more playing like a team, and also just happier in general. So that's something we can do over the course of a 6-month period. I have a package that is 1,895 Australian dollars, and in that package we start with weekly sessions together, because as you start to shift how you respond, they will shift how they respond. So in those first 4 weeks we're kind of tweaking a little bit more, and then after that we go back to every second week. And in those periods, you're getting a chance, with 2 weeks between sessions, you're getting a chance to go and put these things into play, look at what impact it's having for your child and tweaking where necessary, and being able to really step into your own reflective and shifting power, so that you're not taking my advice to know how to parent, you're taking my advice to know how to tune into yourself and how to tune into your child and work out what's necessary from here. So if that's something you'd like to do, you can book a session at jodithornton.com/15 for a free 15-minute conversation. Thank you so much for watching.